Okay, good morning, good afternoon to panel members representing various organizations from different part of the world. And I welcome all the participants here in a very important discussions which we have planned today. In fact, digital signatures, as we found, is a fundamental to the digital economy. In the previous presentation, we saw how digital signatures are at the backbone of the growth of digital economy, which is increasing exponentially in India and other part of the world. Very important aspect of the trade, the foreign trade, the exchange of information, the exchange of documentation, the bilaterals. Digital signature plays a very key role. Under the Indian IT Act, which governs the India PKI framework, which is being regulated by the Office of Controller of Certifying Authorities in the Ministry of Electronics and IT. This is one of the area where we have been working, and we have been looking forward to the kind of exchange of digital signature cross-border. The cross-border is one of the regulations which permits the government of India, through government of India, that we can have the exchange of digital signature, electronic signatures with other part of the world, and there are models worked out how it can be transacted. Keeping that same ambition forward, Office of CCA, we organized a meeting in the G20 forum on PKI for DPI in the month of June somewhere in Pune. And we found a huge response coming from the members and the non-members present in the G20 forum. In fact, we proposed a framework on which we can work upon and have an agreement finalized amongst the various countries who are interested to have transaction on the exchange of digital signatures. I think no other day could be more, I should say, auspicious or better than today. In fact, today is the date given by Mr. Srinivasan because he was not available yesterday. That's why this session is held today. Today is the G20 session being held in Delhi, where all heads of the states have joined hands in finalizing the recommendations. And the subject of mutual recognition also emerged through the G20 platform. I think we are holding simultaneously the discussions or deliberations are being held in Delhi on the overall policies and programs. And I think we found it prudent that today is a day when we can also interact with other members interested in the mutual recognitions. I think we had this kind of discussion in other platforms of G7. We have been working closely with Japan and EU in such kind of exchange of electronic signatures. Modalities are being finalized. Asia PK Forum is being chaired by Mr. Srinivasan, as brought out in his introduction. So we wanted to rope in the more members from the Asian region as well, who can be party to such kind of agreements. So therefore, we taking this opportunity, having his presence over here, we shared the framework documentation with the other member countries in the Asia PK Forum. And today we are interacting to get their first-hand comments, observations on that. India wants to take lead in this. We want to have further interactions, further deliberation with them, and fine-tune to reach to a consensus where the word trade becomes easier through use of digital signatures. I think that is a perspective under which this particular session is being held. My colleague, Mr. Aashish Banati ji, will be giving an overview of how India Office of Controller of Certifying Authorities proposes the kind of program, kind of arrangement, and we look forward to the remarks of the chairman, Mr. Srinivasan ji. Thereafter, we'll take comments from the members who are present over here, and we'll try to come to a consensus today or maybe subsequently through various interactions, and make it happen that there will be a ease of business, doing business in global trade, exchange of documentation, contracts, business. All those things will become very, very easy when we accept each other's signatures. With this, I would like to request Mr. Srinivasan ji, please give your opening remarks.
Thank you, CCSR. And before commencing on the today's theme of interoperability, I would like to put in place the efforts of the CC office and how India has digitally transformed, and then now how India is looking at globally how we can digitally transform and bring more and more digital transactions around the world. If you see Indian digital transformation, almost all the departments of the government of India and also several state governments are fully digitally transformed. So you take company law department, you take DST department, you take even tendering process, you take the income tax. So anything, everything completely digitally transformed thanks to the efforts of the CC office over the years in complete digital transformation and bringing appropriate methodology, appropriate rules, regulations, which easily facilitate such digital transformation. So today, if we see in India, the digital transformation in government is way ahead of the digital transformation even in the private sector. The private sector, generally people think private sector will be ahead of the government sector, but here it is the other way around, because we are day to day seeing the government sector is ahead of the private sector. The private sector is catching up and they are doing many things to completely digitally transform. Still we see in banks also a lot of paperwork is happening, in many organizations paperwork is happening, but now everybody is gradually going ahead and then playing the catching up game, and they want to digitally transform. But for that, the important point is the right rules, regulations and simplification what has been put in place by the CC office over the years. So this is a very important point. So with this digital transformation across the country now, under G20, the CC office also wants to see how we can digitally transform in the global landscape, global exchange of documents, global trade documents regularization and many other things, so that the lot of otherwise, if you see in the global exchange of documents, lot of times we see this document need to be apostolized, this document has to be consularized, and this apostolization and consularization process invariably takes anywhere between 15 days to 1 month also, and it involves somebody to visit that consular office in that place, physical presence of the person. So many angles are involved. And if it gets digitalized, and how it can get digitalized, respective country may follow their own rules, their own regulations in accepting the identity of a certain person. But today there is no uniform cross-border rule to see how a citizen of a particular country, whatever he signs using their digital signature, can be recognized in some other country. So this is what now CCI office wants to put in place, so that any country, any trade document signed in any, for example in Europe or for example in Malaysia, or could be Africa, could be recognized in India, and whatever signed in India could be recognized, so that the cross-border movement of paper and cross-border trade gets highly facilitated. So that is the objective of this interoperability guideline, and for that some guidelines they have made and circulated the guideline to various countries. Lot of discussions are taking place under the auspices of this G20, and then they expect to finalize these things under this auspices so that it will become easier. Then the other important thing is also, earlier UN model law did not cover the LC and various forms of trade documents to be accepted by digital signature. Those things had to be signed by physical signature, but now they have also adopted that those documents also can be signed. Similarly, power of attorney also now can be signed digitally. So with the result, except the immovable property transaction, almost everything can be digitally signed. So that is the regulatory landscape which has come in, and that is being adopted globally. So with the result, if this cross-border interoperability mechanism is put in place, it will really help the much more advance the pace of globalization and also the global trade. So that is the main objective of this seminar today. With that, I will make a small presentation quickly and then request Mr. Banati later on. So presentation, how we can put the presentation. Yeah. So the public key infrastructure plays a very critical role in every country's digital ecosystem by providing technical non-repudiation as well as legal backing to the transaction happening digitally. The word non-repudiation is very important. Though several methods of digital transactions are there, the PKI mechanism is the only mechanism where non-repudiation is there. Other mechanisms somebody can dispute because they are all not fully foolproof and authentic. So that's where the PKI is a very important thing. The mutual recognition aims to establish the acceptance of digitally signed document beyond the country. So signed in a different country, accepted in India, signed in India, accepted in other countries. It enables citizens to make use of their digitally signed documents outside their home country. With more globalization, the people move across the world and has many a times require to produce original documents for education, banking, employment, and various other purposes. Today, the digital documents require tedious process of having them as certified paper documents from the home country. That is what I said, the consularization and then the apostolization and all these things, in order to prove the genuineness of the document. On the business enablement, the lack of mutual recognition brings a lot of vagueness in the inter-country contract and its admissibility, especially when they are digitally signed. The lack of mutual recognition also slows down the import-export trade due to the need of the physical document exchange or alternative confirmations before accepting electronic information. Another thing is it delays a lot because the physical document has to move by courier, and also the cost of doing everything also increases. So with the way of mutual recognition of digitally signed documents, it will open up hassle-free exchange and recognition of personal and professional documents between the countries. For example, the national IDs, the bank statement, education certificate, driving licenses, etc., provided they are signed by the issuer of the document with a digital certificate issued in that respective national PKI regulation. Mutual recognition also enables businesses to do ease of transaction with recognition of digitally signed contracts and documents. It opens up opportunities for certifying authority operators to enable more use cases between such countries. It also simplifies and speeds up the document interchange in case of import-export process. And most importantly, it paves way for countries' underlying digital infrastructure to be interoperable with one another and the other country, and the mutual recognition of PKI and digital signature. Example, payment, identity, wallets, digital lockers, etc. So India has taken the lead to launch the proposed framework in the current year's G20 forum. This Controller of Certifying Authority Office has taken that lead. This framework proposes a simplified mechanism to bring interoperability among national PKI systems of the countries and economies. The documents have been shared with several countries already, including these panelists for today's discussion. The panel has a representation from countries in Asia, and the African representative could not attend today because he was still in flight because of the flight delay. All others are attending. And then the Europe, providing a wide spectrum to discuss on this important subject. And I look forward to a very fruitful discussion on this. Thank you very much.
Good day, gentlemen. I'm Aashish, Deputy Controller, Office of CCA. And I'll just make the presentation which was given during the G20 event at Pune, where this framework was proposed. Uh, can you put up the presentation? Yeah, just meanwhile, I'll just like to tell that India is in discussion with the various countries. With EU and Japan, we are trying to do a POC for mutual recognition, and the talks are also going on with UK, Australia, and some other countries in Asia are also trying to get this done. Yes. So thanks for the presentation being good. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So Indian secure trust ecosystem and moving towards mutual recognition. This was the presentation made. So India has a strong trust backbone built on basis of PKI. PKI is governed in India by the IT Act 2000, and this was based on the UN Citral Act. The controller of certifying authorities is the regulatory body and works under the Ministry of Electronics and IT. There are, we have 22 CAs currently providing the trust services and issuing DSCs in India. We have one of the largest user base for e-sign transactions. To give the figures, it's more than 10 million active long-lived certificates enabling billions of transactions being done every day. 400 million plus short-lived certificate transactions using e-sign initiative. India has legal validity to these certificates with which are admissible as evidence in the court of law. India conforms to global practices in PKI, making it at par for reliance with other major countries or economy. As far as adoption across the industry is concerned, India has a vast implementation of e-signature ecosystem on which the country's digital public infrastructure relies upon, and India has, sorry. Yeah. And there are examples like DigiLocker being there and other big projects, MCA 21, Passport Seva and all, which are part of such public infrastructures. E-signature establishes the remote trust, enabling the organizations trust a digital transaction with zero human intervention. The transactions between entities are digitally signed, making such transactions to be executed instantaneously without any moderation or back-end manual processing requirements. Such remote trust has enabled complete digitization of several use cases like tax filing, e-procurement, banking and other use cases. These new age use cases like UPI, Aadhaar authentication and other digital public infrastructure initiatives are able to perform the transactions within a few seconds due to the remote trust established by a trusted digital signature at each stage of the transaction. Recognition of e-signatures in India. The uniform recognition and acceptance of e-signatures is made via the national PKI framework established by the regulator, that is CCA. This has been achieved by the way of setting up of uniform regulations, standards, policies and procedures. So for this, you can look at the cca.gov.in website and all these are available there. The system is standardized and operated in an effective and trustable model, which has become a large use case for intra-country recognition and adoption of PKI digital certificates. The transparent ecosystem, there is proactive adoption of PKI-based digital certificates by the businesses and applications across the country with least intervention by the government regulator. The legal admissibility of these signatures make it more reliable for public and private applications to voluntarily adopt the PKI framework, use it for e-authentication and e-signature requirement. There are two regulations in India. One, where the foreign CAs operate under the regulatory authority like CCA, and the other where they are not operating under a regulatory authority, they are just CAs directly operation. So there are two regulations how to make recognize those. Recognition of CAs operating under a regulatory authority. In that case, foreign CAs operating under the PKI regulatory authority comparable to that in India, recognition of foreign CA is based on the principle of reliability and reciprocity. For recognition, it is required foreign CA should have been established under the laws of that country. Recognition requires an equivalent level of reliability. Foreign country regulatory authority accords similar recognition to controller and to CAs licensed under the Act. The controller of certifying authorities CCA India to enter a MOU or say memorandum of agreement with each recognized regulatory authority in that case. So in the current case, both the regulatory authorities mutually recognize each other. Or there is a cross certification at the level of regulatory authority. The recognition of, there is not is missing. CA is not operating under the regulatory authority. Okay, yeah, it's there. So CA is not operating under the regulatory authority. Any foreign CA may apply to controller for recognition. It may require to submit following details. They have to submit a certificate practice statement, the statement of purpose and scope of anticipated digital certificate, signing certificate technology, management and operation to be outsourced, certified copies of business registration license of foreign CA that intends to be recognized, audit report of infrastructure, maintenance of local office, fees in USD 25,000, performance bond USD 10 million, and issuance of recognition within 4 weeks. So this is for a CA which is operating directly and not under a regulatory authority. So next is moving towards the mutual recognition. Now India is keen to progress on mutual recognition with other countries. As part of the objective, India has proposed creation of mutual recognition framework with G20 members as well as other countries. Now it is open, it could be any country. The presentation was made in G7 side event also. Similar this kind of presentation. India proposed to create such a framework with reciprocal in nature, which will give way for mutual recognition of signed documents. This gives way for usage of personal documents, driving license, education certificates, financial documents, etc. outside the home country when they are electronically signed and by the issuer organization. So this is one of the business cases. And mutual recognition of business contracts, this will give way for more ease of doing business when parties are involved across different nations and solves the major concern of legal admissibility of such contracts when parties are from different jurisdictions. Third, mutual recognition of import-export documents when signed under the PKI framework. This will help an easier establishment of trade between the countries with complete process which is being done online. The proposed mutual recognition framework. The PKI recognition framework is essential for establishing secure and interoperable communication in today's globalized world. Yeah. By promoting the trust and security, reducing complexity and costs, and increasing interoperability, the framework provides a standardized and trusted approach that can benefit organizations and governments around the world. India has proposed a detailed framework proposal and overview along with the draft agreement. I think these documents have been shared with you, all of you, and this envisages an idea of establishing trust based on fundamentals of PKI with equivalent level of reliability and also established under the laws of the country. The countries shall publish their root trust anchor or a trusted CA trust list. Second, countries shall ensure that they have an active and compliant national PKI framework. The countries shall demonstrate their compliance with globally accepted practices like Web Trust or ETSI specifications. The technical and operational framework for recognition shall also be established by the countries. Yeah, to conclude, cross-border recognition of digital transactions will make easy way in globalization of digital public infrastructure initiatives with proven model of secure remote trust. Public key infrastructure plays a crucial foundational layer to move towards global mutual recognition. We'll be happy to work with countries to progress towards the proposed mutual recognition framework. We also invite countries to take part in the initiative so that we can work towards a safe and secure information exchange and build a secure digital world. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting the various points related to in the context of India. Now I request Mr. Apostolos Tolis from the European Commission, Luxembourg, to share his views on this topic.
Good morning, everybody. Can you listen to me? And confirmation if you are listening to me?
Mr. Apostolos, we are not able to hear you.
You cannot hear me.
Yeah, now
Just
we are able to
bear
hear. Yeah, now we are able to hear. Please go ahead.
You can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me to this panel discussion in your forum. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here. And actually, we are delighted as a European Commission to be represented in your forum in order to express our views and also inform you about the latest developments in our international collaboration with third countries. First of all, I would like to say that I fully agree with what has been said so far. Personally, I strongly believe that the mutual recognition on trust services is a key enabler on boosting the collaboration between the European Union member states and the third countries in terms of trade, in terms of exchange of population, because we have a lot of foreign citizens coming to the European Union member states and vice versa. A lot of Europeans are coming to your countries in order to work, and all of these infrastructures that we have in place, if we manage actually to reach out a level that we will be able to form a mutual recognition agreement, I believe, I strongly believe actually, that we will see a tremendous uptake on all of these the PKI factors which boost these transactions and collaboration. Now, European Commission recently launched its third countries trusted list program. So what the countries that we collaborate and we have high-level political discussions as we speak are having a very well-structured framework in terms of processes, in terms of technical documentation, in order to be able to align their trust services ecosystem with the ecosystem that we operate in Europe, so as to ultimately, and this is the goal, according and considering that the AIDAS, the second revision of the AIDAS regulation is about to be published later this year, to have a very a nice process of establishing a mutual recognition on the trust services. This practically means that an electronic signature that is based on certificates that are issued by trust service providers in foreign countries will be recognized. The electronic signatures that are based on these certificates are going to be recognized, and they will have the same legal value as the qualified electronic signatures that we have in Europe. And this is the ultimate goal. I would like to pass the floor to my other panelists before elaborating further about the history of this program, how it is started, which are the current state of play with the collaborations. We had a very nice collaboration with Japan, and on the G7 ministerial forum, it was a presentation of the proof of concept that we have concluded with the Japanese counterparts. And we are actively collaborating with the Indian government and PKI players, let's say, in order to have another proof of concept concluded in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tolis, for sharing your views. Now, I request Mr. Mohamed Zaidi to share his views from Malaysia.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Zaidi, we are able to hear you well.
Yeah, thank you for organizing committee, for inviting me to be a panel for discussion. I think this is timely, and congratulate India for taking a leadership in mutual recognition. I think at the global stage, I think this is a huge moment for all of us. We need a leader in this area. And Malaysia has, as you know, adopted quite early Digital Signature Act in 1997. And we have adopted UN Central model law and introduced a lot of technology neutrality in terms of electronic signature in the journey. And Malaysia also is going to have national digital ID very soon. And we hope we can accelerate the adoptions of paperless and presentless situation in Malaysia and transform Malaysia into a digital nation. I think that's the. I think digital signature in Malaysia, I think, is quite mature domestically. A lot of use case has been successful. I don't want to share all of them, but tax is one huge area for us. And then we see a lot of changes happen in Malaysia. And the only things that we all know is that digital signature, when it was designed, because of it's an internet, it should be globally recognized from day one. However, because of that journey, we all learned, and even we have a situation, I think some period that we thought, that many people thought, that PKI should be dead already for many, many years ago. But somehow we see the trust research has been become a central discussion globally because of cyber threat and whatnot. And this is, I think, a moment for public key infrastructure to move from very domestic domain into what we call it a cross-border domain. I think that is a challenge. And I know what India has done in terms of a draft framework. I think I've read it and I think it's quite general. Principle-based, it can be easily being adopted by many countries. Of course, there are some details that we can adjust along the way. So with the PKI framework, mature framework, we hope and we can work together, of course, to establish what we call it a global PKI territory one day, where India and many other countries who we know is quite advanced in PKI can show the way that this can be done by the governments under a digital transformation. I think that is my first intervention or my first comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Zaidi. Now, as we move on, I request Mr. Hwan Shin, Director Deloitte and South Korea Agency, to give his views. Mr. Hwan Shin.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, you are very much audible. Yes.
Okay. First of all, it's my pleasure to join this the valuable panel discussion. Also, in South Korea, we have the mature the national PKI scheme across throughout the country. The digital certificate is a uncommon word. Has become common word in South Korea. It means that you can see the TV or YouTube commercial for the trust service or digital certificate in South Korea easily. Also, you can issue and or the manage your digital certificate in application, banking app, or the simple payment app, or the mobile messengers, or telecom communication apps on your mobile devices. That's the reason why really agreed on the India's proposed the mutual recognition framework. In my memory, that in 2001 and 2010, there was a case, the testing case for the mutual recognition with the 4 countries, including South Korea, under the name of the Asia PKI Forum, which was the old name of Asia PKI Consortium. The test was successfully because at the time they really focused on the matching the technical requirement for the digital certificate and the making digital signature. Also, they really focused on the small the test area, which is the e-commerce portal site. But we also had got the lesson from the case conducted in 2001 and 2002. That was it is really important to consider the regulatory things and the law and regulation requirement among the countries. But these days, I really happy to see there is the globalized or the globally accepted the audit scheme, which are the Web Trust and SD. That means that it can guarantee it can guarantee the operations and the management of the certificate authority according to the global or international standard. Also, it includes the law and the regulation requirement in the framework. In South Korea also, we have a very complicated requirement for the low-rent regulation. But in the near future, if the India government also the other reliant party in the Asia PKI consortium members, we can collaborate for the better the result to make the complete the framework the mutual recognition. The last word. I would like to tell to everyone. I think this is a very good the movement for the mutual recognition over the world, and then also the EU they mentioned that if we have the common the regulation or common the framework for the mutual recognition, it is more easier for everyone to use data certificate and make data signature over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jin, for sharing the Korean perspective. Now I request Mr. Vijayakumar to share his viewpoints. Mr. Vijayakumar.
Dr. Balaji, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for this opportunity, and thanks to all the panelists for that opening remarks. I think we have a very strong panel because I think the regions what they are representing from are like strong regions in PK adoption. EU has been looked as an example for all the standards and PK implementation. More standards, globally recognized standards come from EU, and all the countries across the world keep looking at EU. So we are very glad that Mr. Tolis made this participation. And coming to Malaysia, I think it is one of the high voluminous implementation of digital signatures, a lot of success stories in digital signature adoption. So I think Mr. Zaidi, I think it's a strong representation from Malaysia, what we have here. And also South Korea has been looked as one of the largest and quickest digital adopter, and driven from a lot of PKI implementations. They also overhauled the PKI policies few years ago, and a lot of web trust-based certifying authorities are operating, and definitely the views from Shin is very helpful. I represent from Asia PKI Consortium, and also I'm CTO at eMudra. So I will run through a very quick opening presentation for my discussion, and then maybe we can jump into discussions as maybe possibly I can share my screen. So I'm sharing my screen. So, yeah. So at Asia PK Consortium, I chair the Technology and Standards Working Group. The working group works on technology and standards related aspects. But when we come to the major objective of Asia PK Consortium is towards adoption, awareness, interoperability, and moving towards mutual recognition. That has been always the core objective of the consortium, and all the participating countries have been actively involved in this conversation. So mutual recognition of electronic signatures and electronic signed documents is a very important thing. So in the consortium, we have been working out as working group, like what are the factors if we have to really get into a mutual recognition goal. So that's where these 6 pillars have been identified, and that's where I think individually we are trying to benchmark each country's maturity to coming to a mutual recognition framework. The very first item, if you see in this particular benchmarking, is the country legislation. I will show in the next slide where there is some UN data on this aspect, but it's very important that each country has certain legislation for digital transaction. So most of the countries under UNCITRAL law have e-transaction law or the Information Technology Act, and there are guidelines for enablement of PK ecosystem. Second particular pillar, if you see, is infrastructure or the service providers. It's very important that there are trusted third parties in the ecosystem. There are trust service providers. So there should be licensing policies and a regulated framework for this aspect. And this has not been successful unless there is a private participation in this particular program. So this is the second one. The third pillar, as we see here, is awareness and adoption. One is the enablement of relying parties, the application providers, the service providers is very important, and also bringing awareness to the users to use the digital signatures and adopt public infrastructure-based digital transactions. The fourth one in this is compliance benchmarking. I think a couple of speakers already mentioned about this. Mr. Shin also mentioned. So globally acceptable compliance benchmarking should be there because several countries keep following their own customized audit criteria or the compliances. But I think globally things are evolving. There are standard policies and procedures being established. So that's why what we see is more web trust and HC related standard adoption has been very helpful when we benchmark the countries. The fifth one is more an interoperable framework because this has to be very important to get into technical conformance. So that's where the type of certificates, the identity verification, and several other procedures, what has to be mutually recognized has to be in place. So that's why interoperable framework is also very essential aspect here. Then finally, the sixth pillar will be the goal, that is the mutual recognition, the recognition of signatures outside the country. So this has been one of the benchmarking aspect what we are trying to work with the countries. The next slide talks about the very first pillar. What I mentioned is the e-transactions law availability. I think that's the basic pillar. If you see this one particular stats provided by UNCTAD is this is of 2021. Most of the countries already have implementation of electronic transaction law. So the basic legislation is already available. What is required is to operationalize this legislation and bring other four pillars into action so that the sixth pillar can be achieved. So this is a very, very important aspect. So there is no groundwork required in most of the countries. The legislation is available. It's more about operationalization and making it interoperable. So globalization via mutual recognition, as Mr. Aashish Banati mentioned, I think it's a very important point. What India has taken the lead in line with the G20 presidency, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or one world, one family. This is very important, where the digital transaction can become borderless. So borderless digital transaction should be the goal, so that the other country can identify and recognize such digital transactions. So the three examples, what previous speakers also mentioned, I have put here. But the last one, the transactions made via digital public infrastructure should be recognized by another country. This is a very important aspect. I think in the opening presentation, Mr. Srinivasan also highlighted on this particular point, that this will create a very foundational layer for easier recognition of payments, identity, educational documents, which are now coming as a larger digital public infrastructure aspect, which is also noted in the outcome of G20 Digital Economy Working Group documents. Way forward, as we discussed, I think it's very important to move towards mutual recognition with other countries. At Asia PK Consortium, we have members more than 11 countries and cooperation agreements with European, Arab, African regions. We intend to facilitate such an agenda to move the digital transactions borderless. So we are very glad that India is taking this particular lead. The regulator office is themselves are involved in this particular program, and our consortium is very happy to work with them and drive this particular program. So we look forward to liaise in a continued conversation and move towards the borderless digital transactions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Now I over to Srinivasan sir to request for questions or look forward for, or you share your views or like that.
So the mutual recognition, as all of you have seen, it's a very important aspect. And most of the panelists here, they have accepted that the mutual recognition is very important, and they will also work with India towards going towards that mutual recognition. And other number of countries who are participant in the Asia PK Consortium, and also some of them who are participant in the African PK Consortium, we are also in touch with all of them, and out of them also several people have expressed their inclination to go towards the mutual recognition. So, but all of them we have to work and then set up the standards which in consultation and association with the controller of certifying authority, we may work from the Asia PK forum. So with that, this important aspect, once it is taken care of, it will completely facilitate the cross-border transactions and the cross-border recognition of documents. So with that, I now invite Mr. CCA to make the concluding remarks.
First of all, thanks to all the panelists for joining on a very short notice. I know Vijay has done a lot of hard work in spite of his busy commitments elsewhere outside office. He arranged this total panel discussions and made himself available. Thank you, Vijay. With the discussion we had and the kind of interaction, it is very heartening to know that now it is well understood that there is a need for recognition of borderless transactions. So with the G20 theme of One Earth, One Family, and what is that? One Vasudev Kutumbakam, that kind of philosophy, the word is one. So everybody has found the need for having a seamless transactions across the world. That's something very important. And yes, there are some requirements. There are requirements with respect to the legislative framework in each of the countries. There are requirements for having policy framework. There are requirements of having national PKI framework, processes, technology in place, processes in place. I think that's all can always be built up, and that can always be shared among one and all nations, and it can be made acceptable at both the country levels. I think time has come for facilitation of the global trade, looking at the growth of digital economy, and I really appreciate the time spent by all the panelists over here, giving their valuable suggestions and supporting the theme which is proposed by India. I look forward to the written communications of all of you from the panel and the other countries, which can be followed by Office of CCA, so that we can take it forward from this stage and moving to the further level of deliberation and coming to the conclusion of making it one word, one kind of acceptable digital signature for the overall global trade and global growth. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is Vijay here. So we can go with a round of closing remarks by each of the panelists with the open floor.
Yeah.
There is time.
Yes. Yes, Vijay. Yeah.
Okay. So to start with Mr. Tolis, thank you very much for joining. I think already we have shared these documents as well, but now as already Mr. Arvind Kumar has mentioned, we are already doing a pilot with EU as well as Japan. That's more on a technical operational nature, but we would be very keen to discuss on this framework, which could be a broader administrative framework, discussing on interoperability, any challenges in this framework. Definitely we would be very keen to discuss with the EU Commission. So maybe this panel discussion would be the beginning, but we need to continue this conversation to make it happen between India and Commission, and same with other panel members also. So I would request your comments on this particular matter.
Thank you, Vijay. My 2 cents in this collaboration is, or in the overall discussion actually, that the technical part, in my humble opinion, is the easiest to be resolved. The technical dimension of this journey of the mutual recognition of trust services between EU and third countries, because we have tremendous experts across the globe in order to find a consensus on which technical specifications and standards should be followed and agreed by both parties, let's say, so as to establish this technical trust. On the other hand, in Europe, we have the other type of trust, which is based on some other elements. Just to name a couple of them, I'm talking about the governance from the APLADAS pyramid of trust, which is in place in Europe. And we're talking about the conformity assessment bodies, the conformity assessment reports, the peer audits that are coming or happening, I'm sorry, from independent authorities, etc., etc. So this is a very, very important aspect that needs to be not forgotten in our journey to mutually recognize the trust services across the globe. And another dimension that I would like to put in our discussion is the cybersecurity. We have established, excuse me, excuse me. We have established in the EU a cybersecurity monitoring tool with the assistance of ENISA, the cybersecurity agency of the Union, so as to all of us that are part of this ecosystem, not only the Commission or other European institutions, but the member states, the supervisory bodies of the member states, etc., to be immediately alerted for any cybersecurity threat that could impose a cybersecurity incident across our ecosystem. And all of you understand that if this trust is going to be compromised, then the whole tower is going to collapse. So in the outlook of moving towards a mutual recognition between the Union and third countries, we shall never forget how we are going to take in our European family the third countries at the cybersecurity level as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tolis. I think that's very helpful comments. Can we have some comments from Mr. Zaidi, please?
Yeah, my final words, I mean, for maybe 1 minute only. I think I can agree with our friends from European Commission on the technical issue is not a big, I think, hindrance. I think we have a quite matured PKI technology and standards already nationally. I would imagine the challenge in terms of mature recognition is the backlash if we don't manage it well, that the local certification authority might think that we're going to open up the certification authority for the global CAs to come and compete with them. I think that is a message that we need to be recognized, that could be an issue as well. So rather that we are talking about recognizing others' certificates that domestic law going to recognize rather than they compete. This is about collaborating so that we can establish a single territory of what call it the digital signature of PKI in the world. I think that is my final comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zaidi. I think we have also received some feedback on this, but that has been quite a misconception that foreign certifying authorities may impact the local certifying authorities' business or issuance as such, because usually in mutual recognition, countries tend to put some kind of exclusion that the recognized certifying authorities may only be allowed to issue in the countries where for which they are recognized. Like say, if you recognize an Indian certifying authority, it's mostly for Indian citizens whom they can issue the certificate, and Malaysia shall recognize those certificates. So that's kind of a structure. These are the kind of challenges what we wish to discuss on the framework while we progress to bring a final consensus. Thank you for that. Over to Mr. Shin for remarks, please.
Yeah. Once again, I really happy to join this portable discussion, and then I totally agree with all the panelists' ideas and opinions. My last word, we need, I think the technical perspective is very, very important. But in my view, I think in a perspective of regulatory and supervision, the bodies, also we need to consider certificate life cycle and the usage of digital signature after certificate issuance that propose the framework for the mutual recognition will include not only technical matter, but also the how to handle over the manage certificate authority, the Azure Trust Anchor. As I mentioned, the Web Trust audit criteria or the FG, the criteria that might be good method to check over the audit, the operations or management of certificate authority regularly. But the other things that we need to consider how to guarantee the financial damage caused by misissued certificate or the mistake by certificate authority. How can we save our entity and entities such as the mandatory the joining of insurance, the kind of specific guideline for the user protection against the financial damage. That is my last word. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shin. Thank you. So with these remarks, I think we have very positive opinion on this. I had a discussion with another co-panelist, Mr. Aashish Banati as well, and with this Indian initiative, he would be very keen to have the conversation continued with each one of you, maybe with separate discussions. How do we take this conversation forward? May I request Mr. Aashish Banati, do you have remarks to make?
Hello.
Yes, please. We are able to hear you.
Yeah. Hello. I think it's good to have you all here, hear your remarks, and we all feel together now that we should have a mutual recognition system in place. Those security things and maybe trust list, middleware and the business layer things have to be developed, and rules, regulation, policies have to be in place so that the system which comes up has to be secure enough to get the confidence. And with that, we'll have further discussions and we'll definitely move forward in this direction. And with that, I think the conclusion remark, CCA sir will give the final conclusion.
Hello. Yeah, the point is taken. Yes, there are challenges with respect to technological solutions, security, privacy, and everything. But these we should look as an opportunity. End of the day, it has to go through, and we'll collectively work on some kind of technological platform, which will be workable amongst various participating countries. Right now, we are working with EU and Japan on one such proposal. India has also got a DigiLocker kind of concept, which we wanted to introduce and share with other members. See, these things can always be worked out mutually once we sit together. I look forward to them as a challenge. It's an opportunity for all of us to work, and I'm sure if we have a consensus at the policy level, because we all have a legal framework, we all have a system in our country, so it is very much doable, and let's put our hands together and make it a success. Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, please, sir. You want to say something?
Another thing is this aspect we can further discuss in the Asia PKI Consortium. So what we may have a meeting in October and November, so more detail can be discussed also.
Yeah, as brought out, Asia PK Forum next month or maybe the next month, the issues can be further consolidated in those meetings. Okay, thank you.
Sir, thank you for a well-rounded discussion, sir. Just three small points, just adding to what has been already discussed. First of all, when it is interoperable across the globe, we already have models both for industries and banking sector, where there is a corporate governance and still you comply with the local country laws. They create a subsidiary or equivalent. So they all interoperate across the globe. The corporates have global policies, which is for the corporate. Maybe the talk that was specifically mentioned about what happens if a global player wants to operate under this new ecosystem. So we have the corporate and country compliance model with MNCs and transnational countries. So that model can be considered similar, so that this is at par with others, because it's also digital economy along with these other business. The second point was that cybersecurity, like Vincent mentioned. As we work together, the honeypot gets larger and sweeter, so there will be more bees attacking us. So definitely, we have the standard NSF, Indo-US call, Indo-European call. The joint calls are there on thematic calls. So maybe CCSR through the on the respective countries through their official funding channels, they can call for a joint proposal on thematic areas. How to make this robust when we operate across the globe with disparate technological maturity and people literacy level and things like that. That is a great opportunity to have international collaboration on PKI-based research. That is the second one. The third one is, now we have all the forums. Similar to the way we have the Energy Commission, Atomic, and so many other areas, we can also have kind of bodies which can go and kind of, what should say, audit or inspect other countries as a global team, which happens in various well-standardized processes, where it is green energy, all the SDG goals. So this is also one of them. So if such a thing can be conceptualized across multiple countries, so there can be a group of 3 or 5 people can visit and understand. That can be some periodicity can be defined. Those are the 3 points that I thought I'll place before the August audience, and CCSR, if you can consider them, it will be nice. Thank you.
Any questions?
So, sir, as far as this mutual recognition is concerned, so are we only looking with respect to legislation, administration, or legal aspect, or are we also looking for something like cross certification or interoperability between root certificate authority of different countries? Are we working in that area also?
Hello. Yeah, definitely it has to be mutual recognition, and then you work towards the technical interoperability, cross certification. First thing is to agree to recognize each other. Secondly, technically how it works, we have to work out. The discussion just going on was to establish trust at various levels. How to establish trust, we'll have further discussions which are being proposed, to have a trusted list, to have a middleware, to have application level security. All those things are to be seen and worked out after mutual discussions. Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay, I think.
Bouncer.
Okay. So actually, few years back we had bought one TLS certificate from eMudra, which was from some other route certifying authority.
Right.
And recently we had tested one TLS certificate which was through our own CCA.
Yes.
So if in TLS certificate that can be achieved, then what is the challenge in mutual recognition of DSC?
These are
Means
two.
user certificate.
See, one is you said e-mudra has a route which was through some other CA, that was Sectigo. And one you said e-mudra has a certificate which is through Indian route. So these two routes are separate. There is no bridging between the two as of now. And
But
that's
both
it.
TLS certificates are recognized by our browsers. So it means that
Both are recognized by which browser? Microsoft and Adobe recognizes Indian certificates.
no. So my
So
question
which
is
browser
that
did
same
you?
thing can be same recognition can be done for other also, no? Means for user certificate. Same way.
Same way user certificates can be recognized means what?
Means that one CA he is also recognized through a foreign CA as well as Indian route certifying authority. So TSC also can be done like that.
Yeah, please.
No, the rules governing the individual organization certificate and rules governing the SSL certificates are different. If you see individual organization certificate, generally governed by the rules of each country. So India has India CC authority, they have published several rules. Similarly, each country has several rules. Within that, there are 2-3 models. Some countries say that even a foreign certifying authority to operate in that country, they have to put a data center there. Their own data should not go outside. That data has to be within that country. Some other countries even allow the foreign certifying authority to register in that country and operate. So that way the rules of individual certificate is quite different. Whereas when you come to the SSL TLS certificate, the certifying authorities which are recognized by the Web Trust accreditation and then which are again which route has been enlisted in all the global root stores, which is a very complex process because there is a Microsoft root store, Mozilla root store is there, then the Apple root store is there, then Google root store is there, then the Oracle root store is there. Each of these root store, they enroll people once in 2 years, 3 years, not immediately. So to get enrolled in each of the root store again is a very complex process which takes several years. So that's why what is this SSL certificate and individual certificate methodologies are different and the rules are different today.
That I understand. And my question was, can we go on the same way like for TLS certificate?
TLS certificate, if you see the current CCA route is recognized by the Microsoft, but may not be recognized by the Apple. So under CCA route, if we issue a SSL certificate, in Apple it may not show as a valid certificate. Whereas the Sectigo route or the DigiCert route or other routes, they are recognized in all the root store. The root store is an independent, browsers are controlling the root stores, not any government framework.
Okay, I got it. So my question was that the way TLS certificate operates, can we make the same way for operation of this user certificate?
No, because user certificate, every government want to govern in a more regulated way and different way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to add
I have one
to
small
what
comment
Mr.
before
Srinivasan
closing.
mentioned,
Sir, actually,
the purpose is different. As he rightly said, the user certificates are for signing purposes and to be recognized by the national legislation or the laws of each country, whereas SSL is trusted by private application providers. If you're using Google Chrome, Google has to trust. If you're using Mozilla, that has to trust. So the purpose is only limited to application providers. So similarly for signing certificates, getting Adobe trust is easier. So if you open in Adobe, it will work. But whether a country's law recognizes, that is a very important aspect. And that's where the signing certificates will require the countries to accept mutually. So that's very important. Thank you.
Thanks, Vijay, for the clarification. So I have just one small comment who is standing on the boundary lines. Maybe as a consortium, as a people who are participating from various countries, whatever as CCA sir and Srinivasan sir and Banati sir also has mentioned, the documents, some of the documents, especially the techno policy related documents, can also put up as informational drafts in forums such as IETF, maybe we are actually, because this is a consortium of organizations that are working together, and this can actually gather up momentum with more collaborators from different countries coming in and pushing in, and it can become a really world class standard. So, this is just my thought, I just putting it in this forum. Okay. Okay, only one question. Okay. Yeah, please. It's audible. You can go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, there are so many strong dignitaries here, sir. For all the insights, what you people have shared with us, that is really wonderful. But, sir, being an entrepreneur, I have a very small, it is type of question also, or type of suggestion also. Sir, we are almost about 140 crore people country, sir. It's a very big country. But still, I feel the awareness about this PKI is very less among the people. That why this digital signature is required. Why, if in every sector there are a lot of frauds which is happening with the papers. Okay, somebody has used your paper to take your loan and something. So, my very small, question is that what kind of, initiatives as an CCA we should take for the awareness of this PKI and everything among the general people, or do you have any policy guidelines available with us? Because this is, I don't know how relevant it is, but for me as an Indian citizen, it is to get this awareness about this PKI.
Okay, the CDAC has been doing awareness courses on behalf of CCA, and those are regularly being done. You are invited to attend those courses. You can contact Dr. Balaji for this. There is also a website, you can contact them. All material of the previous trainings, events, everything is available on those websites. And the user not using the PKI is also something you may not be knowing, but a banking transaction that you are doing may have lot of PKI involved in it. So you are totally agnostic at times to what all is going on in the background. The systems are mature and have been using PKI technology. I think banking has been using the XML signatures since about 15 years from now, and a lot of things are going on, but public may not be aware they are using those features. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thanks to all the panel members as well as the dignitaries and the moderators for making this a wonderful brainstorming discussion.